The crowd surges in the blistering heat of Bukhara Square. A British officer, his uniform tattered, is dragged before the jeering masses. Chains rattle at his wrists. His name, Captain Arthur Connolly. His crime, spying for the British Army. The ruler gives the order. Silence falls. A sword rises, flashes in the sun, and Connolly's voice is silenced forever. But before his death, he left the world a phrase, the great game. It was not a game of dice or cards. It was a ruthless struggle between two of the world's greatest empires, and the prize was nothing less than control of Asia. But how did Britain and Russia turn deserts and mountain passes into their chessboard? 1830. The Russian Empire is expanding southwards, swallowing Khanate and pressing closer to Afghanistan. To the west, Britain watches nervously from its jewel of the crown, India. Losing it would shatter the British Empire. But what if Russia were to march through Afghanistan and seize it? The answer wasn't armies, not yet. This war would be fought in silence and shadows. Men with false names, disguises, and forged papers. Priests who weren't priests. Artists who weren't artists. Explorers who weren't explorers. Map became more dangerous than rifles. Secrets more valuable than gold. And into this dangerous game stepped one of Britain's most daring players, Alexander Burnes. Sir Alexander Burnes was everything a spy in Central Asia needed to be. Handsome, confident, fluent in Persian and Hindustani. Locals admired him, rulers trusted him, and even enemies respected his charm. His mission: gather intelligence in Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan, a city where every whisper could spark a rebellion. At first, it worked. Burnes cultivated friendships with Afghan leaders, charmed his way into courts, and sent back valuable intelligence to British India. But by 1841, the political tide had turned. Resentments of Britain's interference boiled into rage. One morning, an armed mob stormed Burnes' residence. His guards panicked. Burnes, ever the diplomat, stepped into his balcony, trying to calm the crowd with words. But charm could not stop fury. The mob surged forward. Burnes and his companions were cut down in the frenzy of blades. Back in London, his death sent a shiver through the Parliament. The great game was no longer a cloak and dagger adventure. It was a bloody struggle where death could come at any moment, and for Britain, this blow was just the beginning. Arthur Connolly, the man whose execution opened our story, believed Britain could unite the warring tribes of Central Asia under its wing. He imagined a coalition that would resist Russian influence, a bulwark to protect India. But belief can be fatal in the deserts of Central Asia. Connolly was betrayed, captured in Bukhara, and paraded through the street as a spy. His pleas for mercy fell on deaf ears. His execution was public, meant to humiliate Britain. For London, it was a catastrophe. Not only was one of their officers dead, but the message was clear. This was no gentleman's adventure. This was a war without rules. And yet, the Russians were only just beginning to unleash their most dangerous weapon. Not soldiers, but explorers in disguise. Nikolai Przhevalsky. Officially, he was a scientist. His expedition collected plants, animals, and maps of rivers. His notes described landscapes, wildlife, and cultures. But behind the drawing of mountain goats and river valleys lay something far more dangerous: military intelligence. Every scientific survey doubled as a blueprint for invasion routes. Every sketch of a pass was a potential highway for Russian troops. To the casual observer, Przhevalsky was a naturalist, but Britain knew the truth. Russia was inching closer and closer to the gates of India. The mountains of Central Asia were no longer wilderness. They were battlefields, where maps were weapons and lies were shields, and Afghanistan stood at the very center of all of it. By the late 19th century, the pressure was unbearable. Russian troops pushed deep into Turkestan, capturing cities like Samarkand and Khiva. Every advance brought them closer to the Afghan frontier. Britain responded by tightening its grip on India's northern borders. Forts were built, armies drilled, Afghan rulers were pressurized, bribed, and sometimes replaced, all to ensure Afghanistan remained a buffer state. But Afghanistan was no easy pawn. Its tribes were fiercely independent, its mountains nearly impossible to conquer. Both empires learned the hard way that Afghanistan could resist any foreign land. In 1878, tensions exploded into the Second Anglo-Afghan War. Britain forces invaded, fought bloody battles, and installed a friendly ruler. But the cost in lives and treasure was staggering. Meanwhile, Russian patrols edged within 20 miles of Afghanistan's northern border. London panicked, convinced a full-scale invasion was only a week away. The world braced itself. Two colossal empires, armed to the teeth, stood one misstep away from war. And then, in a twist no one expected, they stepped back. 1907. After decades of maneuvering, spying, bribing, and bleeding, both empires were exhausted. The endless struggle in Central Asia had drained resources and claimed countless lives. Rather than plunge into a disastrous war, Britain and Russia signed the Anglo-Russian Convention. The agreement divided Persia into spheres of influence, confirmed Afghanistan as a buffer state, and set Tibet firmly off limits. The Great Game, after nearly a century of espionage and bloodshed, ended not with battle but with a handshake. Britain kept its jewel, India. Russia turned east towards new rivals, particularly Japan. While the game ended on paper, the shadow it cast never disappeared. Though the Great Game ended in 1907, its tactics never vanished. Spies, proxies, secret treaties, buffer states that would reappear in the Cold War, where Afghanistan once again became a graveyard for empires. Today, the same mountain passes once sketched by spies and explorers still shape geopolitics. Nations still vie for influence in Central Asia. Resources, pipelines, alliances, the chessboard remains, and even if the players have changed, the Great Game was never truly about maps or borders. It was about fear, fear of losing the prize, fear of being outmaneuvered, fear of being outplayed in a game where the rulers were written in blood. And so, we look back on the 19th century struggle for Asia. One truth emerges: the Great Game never truly ended. Its spies may be gone, its explorers may be buried in forgotten graves, but its echo remains in every shadow war, every proxy conflict, every hidden hand pulling the strings of global politics. Because history never dies, it just echoes.